All right, we'll get started. It's about 4 o'clock. My name is Aron Levinson. I'm with a company called Medbox. I'm from Los Angeles. I came here specifically for this. I'm really excited to be here. I've never been to Prague. It's an amazing place. And my talk today is really about countering the counterculture, enhancing image, removing negative stigmas, and professionalizing an industry that has come of age. That is the longest title I've ever written or has been written for me. It seems a little long, and I think what I want to do is just explain what I'm thinking about. And you'll find that my style of presentation, I like to move around, I like to talk, but this needs to be interactive as well. So I'll just do probably 14, 15 minutes. We'll talk about it, and I would love to open it up for questions and answers and be here to be of help. I think we're all in this industry for a reason, and we're going to kind of walk through on really what I'd like to do is how do we make this bigger and better? So looking back at the title and looking back at this, really what we want to do is make this industry bigger and better. Speak slowly. I will speak slower. No problem. I will. No problem. So before we get started on professionalizing the industry, I think it's really important to pay homage to the people that have really created this industry, which, you know, a lot of folks have worked very hard in this industry. They've been underground for a long time, and all of that is really coming to fruition now. And without all of the risk-taking, people going to jail, depending on the countries and things that have happened, I just wanted to spend a minute and really talk about how these growers and the folks that have been in the business have really laid the groundwork for everything that we're all trying to accomplish. When I think about the industry as a whole, I was thinking about just trying to compare it to something. And the thing I was thinking about is the artist and the art dealer. And I just want to tell a couple of stories just from my experience in the business. I've met some amazing cultivators, amazing growers who are very passionate about what they do. And that passion is actually contagious. As I'm new to the industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about my history and why I came into the industry, but I really think about it as an art. And the cultivators, in my opinion, are artists. They're growing something. They nurture it. It's like their child. And the thing that I think is missing, though, is the art dealer, right? Somebody who can grow it, that's one part of it, but how do you distribute it? How do you share it with people? How do you provide real medicine to real people? And I've come across a few businesses. One is actually an edibles company, so an infused product company, who's doing about $2 million a year just in California, and they're barely scratching the surface. And when I asked them, I said, wow, you know, $2 million a year, that's a lot of chocolate bars and infused products. That's a lot of product being sold to people, yet they're not profitable. They're not making any money. They're losing money. So to do $2 million a year and still lose money, there's something missing there. And when you start to dig in and ask really open-ended questions, it was really about people and the process. And they need leadership. They need a marketing person. They need somebody who understands sales and to not overpay commissions, as an example. You need somebody out in the market selling your product, but if you're paying commissions that are too high, you're never going to make any money. So another example is actually another edibles company just in Southern California. And to watch them make a product in their garage and do nearly $1 million in business in just a few zip codes in Southern California is amazing to me as a businessman. Make it in your garage, sell $1 million worth of stuff. That's amazing to me. But I always think about how do you do it bigger? How do you do it better? How do you open up the marketplace for them? How do you take this to other states and help them grow a national brand like anything else? And I think a lot of the companies are really struggling with that. The other thing I've been thinking about is everybody in this industry, whether you've been in it for a month or you've been in it for 30 years, I feel like we're all holding a lottery ticket, but some people just can't figure out how to cash it. Right? You've got knowledge, you've got industry knowledge, you've got passion, you have an amazing product, but if you can't sell that product to somebody, to the end user, you're really kind of spinning your wheels and it feels like a hobby more than a business. So I just wanted to tell a quick story about why I personally got into the business. I actually read this article in the Wall Street Journal about a year ago, and it talks about, the title of it is Pot Industry Puts on a Tie. And I remember reading the article about the lack of professionalism and business acumen in the cannabis industry, and I was a total outsider. Never used the product, never touched it. I do now, because I truly believe in the medicinal benefits of the product. Thank you. I've never slept so good in my life, by the way. At least that's what my wife says. And so I read this article, and I shared it with somebody who was working in the industry. And I said, is this true? Is it true that this industry is kind of struggling to really get going and scale because of just lack of business acumen, was really what the theme of the article was? And the answer was yes. And that was actually, I sent the article to one of our board members. His name is Mitch Lowe. He's one of the founders of Netflix and Redbox, if you're familiar with those brands. And he's on the board of our company. And I just sent it to him and said, is this true? He said, yes, definitely true. It literally took me 6 more months of due diligence, understanding the next role that I wanted to play in a company. And I really handle business development at Medbox and brand and marketing and things like that. And I really wanted to make sure that, this was something that I wanted to get involved in. My background are startup companies and driving early stage revenue at startups. So whether it's from $0 to $1 million or $1 million to $10 million, that's the part of the business that I like. I'm a sales guy, and I'm very proud to say that. In the previous presentation, we talked a lot about how, at least in America, it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And I would be lying to you if I didn't say I wasn't in this industry to make some of that. I think we all are, okay? And there's nothing wrong with it. We can still provide medicine to people. We can still grow a great product. We can still, look at what's happening at this conference today. You've got consumers, you've got business people, all in one place, and all very different people commingling and doing business together. This is a huge, huge opportunity. And being a business guy, I see huge opportunity, but I also see a real opportunity to help real people. And I think with all of us here today, we all represent different parts of the world, which is a beautiful thing. But this industry is a global opportunity. It's what I'm interested in. And it's massive, which is almost overwhelming at times. So, a little bit about early stage companies, and this industry is not new, okay? This isn't an industry that's starting from 0 and going to 50 billion. This thing has already been going for 20, 30 years, and there's already money being made in this industry. And that's very different than my experience. I usually join a company with founders that have funding and a good idea, and they need somebody to take it to market to sell it. That's what I do. I take good products to market and I sell it. With this industry already going, it's even more attractive because you already know there's an end consumer. And how do you do it right and how do you grow it? Does anybody recognize this? Anybody in the room recognize it? Okay. This was Nancy Reagan's pet project. I don't know if it was an international thing, but I know at least in America, I was one of the first classes, I think in the first grade, to be branded by this. And I was told that drugs are bad. Drug awareness, stay away from gangs, stay away from violence, stay away from drugs. Drugs are bad for you. And so in my brain, I'll tell you, I'm 40 years old. So from age 5 or 6 all the way to 40, I was told that this is really, really bad for you. And so I was kind of scarred. So that's why it took me so long to get in the business. And if you remember that one, you probably remember this one. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And it would all sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. And they weren't talking about it was any drug. It wasn't just marijuana or pot or meth or anything. It was just drugs in general, bad for you. You will die and you will become dumb. And for 35 years, that was in my head. And I think that for most consumers, it is. When I think about kind of 5 hurdles in terms of how to grow this business and how to do it right, it's really prohibition is obviously the first hurdle, right? We're all here trying to figure that part out. Some of it's going to happen beyond our power, and other people are at the table making change, which is great. The second thing is banking. In America, being able to be in this business, it's an all-cash business. You can't go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase or whomever and deposit $150,000 in cash without answering some questions. So banking's a big issue as well. The third one is stigma. There's definitely a stigma for people that work in this industry, and there's also a stigma for people that use the product. It's just a fact. And I think a lot of it is just lack of knowledge, okay? Because as I read up and I watch real-life situations and people with real problems, this product helps. There's no denying it. The fourth piece, in terms of a hurdle, are really bad actors. I think everybody in this room has probably sat across the table from somebody and just realized they don't know what they're talking about and they don't trust them. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And the last piece is really about lack of traditional, business knowledge and business acumen. I think that those 5 hurdles, not saying that they can't be overcome, but those are 5 major hurdles and really kind of the backbone of what I want to talk about today as well. And with those 5 hurdles, you've got business that's already going 100 miles an hour, and in my opinion, needs to slow down, probably like me speaking right now. It's slowing down, and we're going to get into pace and focus and things like that as well. The image now is really, it's young, it's unattached, and in my opinion, irresponsible at times as well. And I'm not showing this to poke fun or be super judgmental. This has a place in the industry, but to grow it, I think it needs to get beyond this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. My very first time in a dispensary in LA, so I'll tell you a story, was back in February. It was the first time that I'd walked into a dispensary. I have my doctor's my doctor's recommendation, and I went into a dispensary in LA, just if you're familiar with LA, west of the 405 on Venice Boulevard. And I had more anxiety going to my first dispensary than I did going to the doctor to tell her that I felt like I needed medical marijuana to sleep better at night. And I'll tell you, my real doctor, she sent me to the cannabis doctor because of all the pills that she wanted to prescribe for anxiety and not being able to sleep. The side effects scared the hell out of me, and I didn't want any part of it. And I'd said to my doctor, what do you think about medical marijuana? She goes, yeah, you just need to go see Dr. Goldstein off the 405, and she'll get you a doctor's rec in a heartbeat. It seemed too easy. And then I left my appointment with my doctor's rec, and that seemed too easy. But now I had to go to a dispensary. I didn't know what to buy. I didn't know how to dose. I didn't know anything. All I knew is that I opened up Weed Maps on my phone. I found a dispensary. I walked in. And I remember handing her my card, and then she looked me up, and she said, oh, okay, you can go in now. And the dispensaries, at least in LA, there's a door behind the door, behind the door, behind the door to actually get to the product. I'm exaggerating, but it was one door, but it was still weird to me because normally you walk into a retail, and you just go buy something, you pay for it, and you leave. She then lets me in, and I was overwhelmed. And I remember I walked in, and I kind of put my hands up like this to the bud tender. And she said, can I help you? I said, I think so. I said, I'm new to this. I don't know what to get. I don't know what to buy. I don't know anything. But I knew I had $200 in cash in my pocket because I didn't know what things cost. I had no idea. The woman behind the counter was stoned out of her mind, okay? She was higher than a kite. And she basically just said, what are your problems? That made me feel like I had like an ailment. It made me feel like I had a defect. And I wasn't really like turned on by her. Like her approach was just so not good. And I said, well, I've read about some edibles, and I was just trying to like name any vocabulary word that I'd read about. I'm like, edibles, oils, vaping. And all she did was she grabbed an O-pen, put it on the, that's not a plug, it's true. She took an O-pen, put it on the table, and I said, well, what is that? She goes, that's your pen. And I said, well, why does it have a USB on it? She goes, well, that's how you charge it. I go, charge it? What do you mean? She goes, that's your battery. I said, yeah, but where's the marijuana? And she goes, oh, that's a different product. So she grabbed a cartridge. It was another O-pen cartridge. And she brought out indica and sativa. And I did know the difference. I said, well, I need indica. I need to be able to fall asleep. And then she's like, well, how about some Chiba Chews? And she threw some Chiba Chews on the table, and they were just different ones, so I picked 2. And I left there with a pen, a cartridge, and 2 edibles, and $58. So the short of the story is, she left $142 in my pocket when she probably could have sold me all $200, if not more. So to me, it was a missed sales opportunity. So the point of my speech is, if we can all figure out how to do this bigger and better, everybody will profit more. When I really think the bud tender and the woman behind the counter just wanted me to leave because I was difficult, and she actually had to spend more time with me. Where some of the dispensaries I've seen are very good at consultative selling. What are your ailments? Let me show you what might work. This has worked for me. This has worked for my mother-in-law. This has worked for my grandmother. And being more consultative. So right now we're up against this. Every presentation I do, I love to show Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's great. But this is really the imagery. And I actually think the real big opportunity for all of us in this room and all of us at this conference and everybody around the world in the industry is this. Older consumers and patients, this is where the money's at. They've got disposable income. They've got real needs. And a lot of these patients have history with cannabis from when they were in junior high and in high school and in college, and they're now coming again around the corner because they have real ailments. They're in pain, cancer treatment, et cetera, et cetera. My mother-in-law has Parkinson's. And I'll tell you that this, to me, is a huge opportunity. Thus, if we can professionalize the industry, professionalize the brands that are playing in the industry, this will appeal to them. It won't scare them like it did me when I first walked into my dispensary. I honestly don't see my mother-in-law, who has the shakes, I don't see her packing anything. I don't see her smoking. I don't see her doing a lot of things with her hand. I really envision her with something like this. It's very simple, it's discreet, it doesn't smell, and there's no stigma behind it because it's private. And I think that for somebody like her, she would buy a lot of these products. I don't ever see her buying flower or smoking pot in any other way. The other thing that I'll tell you about is I was at a dispensary in Santa Ana in Orange County, just outside of LA, and I remember registering for this dispensary. It's a beautiful legal dispensary in Santa Ana, and I sat in the lobby for about 30 minutes. And I remember the woman at the counter was like, well, why don't you go in and go buy your stuff? And I said, just let me be. I'm kind of doing market research here. And I just wanted to watch the types of people that were coming in and out of the dispensary. And they were all 40 to 65 years old. And they were there to get their medicine. It was just really fascinating to me. So not only do I think this, but I'm starting to see it in market and watching people with real money walk in the door. And I think that if we can establish ourselves as responsible and reliant, people will really consider doing business in this industry, but also participating from a consumer standpoint as well. One of the things that I've really learned just early on in this industry is that you have to build trust. And building trust means face-to-face. It means breaking bread, having meals, understanding other people's goals and objectives, and helping them solve those goals and objectives. That's really the beauty, in my opinion, of sales and driving revenue, is understanding your client's goals and coming to them with real solutions. And I think the other thing I'm learning is that we need to make sure we under-promise and over-deliver. I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry who talk a great game, but can't deliver. And I think that's a really important thing. If you can do what you say and say what you do, you're going to earn more trust, you're going to earn more business, and really help people along the way. When I think about trust, like I said earlier, trust is meeting people face to face. It's showing that you care. It's getting on that plane at 5 a.m. I used to get on the plane to go to New York, from LA to New York. I'd get on a 6 a.m. flight so I could make some meetings. I now find myself getting up at 5 a.m. to drive to a farm, far away in the middle of nowhere. But it's the dedication I have and the passion that I have for the business, and it's just really how my business has changed. The other piece that I've been thinking about how do we do this bigger and better is really clear, open, honest communication. I have found that a lot of conversations are about things and stuff and awesome and cool. And those four words, in my opinion, don't say anything about what the value proposition is or what your goals and objectives are. What are you trying to accomplish? And if you just tell me I'm trying to do stuff and things because you're afraid of saying marijuana, you're afraid of saying oil, cannabis, hemp, whatever the words are, we're never going to get to a point where we can actually sit down and understand each other. The other piece that I think is really important is we all need to crawl before we run. I think we're all guilty of running way too fast, and when you run really, really fast, you make a lot of mistakes. It's just a fact. It's a fact of life. If you keep running 100 miles an hour, you're going to miss some steps along the way. And I think that agreeing on some goals and objectives and building out yourself a business model and understanding who your ideal partner is, it'll really help you slow down and focus and be patient and really win. The other thing, too, is you need to understand the marketplace, and you have to vet everything. You have to ask really good, open-ended questions. And in my opinion, good salespeople ask very good, open-ended questions and then shut their mouth. I think bad salespeople talk too much. And it's something that I used to be guilty of a long time ago before somebody sat me down and told me how to properly sell. So I think that the crawling versus running right out of the gate is really, really important. The other thing I think about is not cutting corners. If you think about a square, and if you cut all the corners off of it, you're basically going and just chasing your own tail, running in a circle, okay? And with that said, you've got to get the knowledge in the marketplace and not fake it. I remember sitting at a breakfast, and I didn't say anything for about 20 minutes. And somebody asked me, why aren't you talking? And I said, you know what, I'm new to the industry. I don't know that much. And if I'm talking, I'm not listening. So I'm just going to sit back and listen and take it all in. And when I have a good question to ask, I'll ask. And I remember the response was, oh, okay. Because most of the time, people just fill the air because they're uncomfortable, where in my position, I would rather sit back and listen. So I think that cutting corners is really, you're kind of asking for it. This industry feels, like I said earlier, like a hobby. Don't get me wrong, it's a billion-dollar hobby, which is amazing and a lot of fun. But I also think that quality people, funding, a business plan, and a flawless execution will really allow everybody to make more money and achieve their goals. The other part about growing this industry is to know your audience. And what I mean by knowing your audience, I know some of you in this room, but I don't know everybody, and it's really my job to understand the room that I'm selling to or the room that I'm addressing. And the thing I like to talk about is people in this industry, at least in my opinion, you need to be able to present in the boardroom, right, and be professional, but I also think you need to be able to get out on the farm. And I remember the first farm I went to, I really thought about, what should I wear? I'd never really been to a farm, and I normally dress like this. And I thought, God, you know, if I show up to a farm in a suit, I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to really look like I don't understand. I'm not paying attention. And so I really think that you need to be able to represent yourself in both places. You also need to know your strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, you're trying to create a win-win deal. And those can happen. And I think that if you work too fast, you're never really going to accomplish that win-win deal. If you ever have done a deal and you felt like you got screwed, it's probably your fault, okay? And it's because you let somebody else kind of push you around or talk you into something, and it's because you didn't slow down and ask some more questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's a way to ask questions so you don't feel like you're being interrogated, but there's a way to create dialogue, and at the same time, you're creating that trust. Now, professionalizing this industry is really going to help you find great people. If you as a company, you as a brand can act professional, you'll actually attract more talent. After speaking to 5 or 6 dispensary owners in California, I always ask them, what's your biggest challenge? What's the thing that just keeps you up at night? And they always tell me, I can't find good people. I can't find good people to be behind the counter and sell my product and upsell and be professional and drive revenue at this company. That's my biggest challenge, is I can't find good people. And the story is always, the person behind the counter is, they're too high, they're not this, they're not that. And I always tell them, I said, that's your fault. That's your fault for hiring a warm body, which is actually going to cost you more than if you were to take your time, slow down, and hire somebody that can really help you deliver on your business goals. So from a people perspective, you got to be able to attract a lot of people at the top of the funnel. You got to be able to convert them into employees, and you got to close them so they come to work and they're ready to go. I also think from a sales perspective, this is the same thing. You've got to fill the top of the funnel with a lot of opportunities and keep tightening it down, and the bottom of the funnel needs to get really, really tight so you know that those opportunities are the right one. I've spoken to folks who are exploring partnerships, and I always ask them, who else are you talking to? How many of these conversations have you had? And they normally tell me 5 to 10 to 15, and we just haven't found the right partner yet. And really what they're doing is they're pulling them all the way down to the bottom of the funnel to make sure that they know that that's a real person that they want to work with. Now, looking for people who can work within this structure, this industry is not easy. It's amazing to me how fast it's growing, but with compliance and policy and management and risk and security and continuity and just all of this stuff, doing business in this industry is not easy. It's probably easier in different parts of the world where there's less regulation, or maybe that makes it even worse, which seems to be, at least in California, it's very difficult to do business. But you got to find people that have worked in, and I've been thinking about alcohol, tobacco, pharmaceutical, people that have worked in compliance types of environments so they know the checks and balances that they need to do before they do a deal. I think you can find good talent in pharmaceutical, tobacco, alcohol, things like that, just because of the experience. So getting back to those 5 hurdles, guys, it's prohibition, it's banking, it's a stigma, bad actors, and lack of traditional business experience. We're all going to get better at this as we continue on with this journey. I hope someday we all celebrate this in our own little world. It's not a little world, it's actually a big world, and I can't wait for that day. But as I think about the industry, it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be a fun ride. And at the end of the day, I hope to do it together with you guys. Thank you.